Hello, darling, and welcome back to another episode of Bedtime Stories. My name is Tracy, and I am your host. We are reading the Canterbury Tales by Geoffrey Chaucer. And, oh my goodness, I am underslept and undercaffeinated. But we're going to soldier through because I have been neglecting you, and I'm so sorry. Make sure you've got your water, you've brushed your teeth, and you've gone pee in the potty, because we're going to read the prologue to the Miller's Tale. When the night finished, no one, young or old, in the whole company, but said he had told a noble story, one that ought to be preserved and kept alive in memory, especially the gentlefolk, each one. Our good host laughed and swore, "The game's begun! The ball is rolling, this is going well. Let's see who has another tale to tell. Come, match the knight's tale, if you can, Sir Monk." The miller, who by this time was so drunk he looked quite bloodless, and who hardly sat, his horse was never one to doff his hat, or stand on courtesy for any man, like Pilate in the church plays, he began to bellow. "Arms and blood and bones," he swore. "I know a noble yarn to square the score, with the knight's tale, one that will leave us quits." Our host could see that ale had bleared his wit. "Robin," he said, hold on a minute, brother. Some better man shall come first with another. Let's do this right. You tell yours by and by." "God's soul," the miller told him, "that won't I. Either I'll speak or go on my own way." "The devil with you. Say what you have to say," answered our host. "You are a fool. Your head is overpowered." "Now," the miller said, "everyone listen. But first I will propound that I am drunk. I know it by my sound. If I can't get my words out, put the blame on Southwark ale. I ask you, in God's name. I'll tell you a holy legend of the life. A carpenter lived at one time with his wife, and how a student put horns on his head." The reeve replied, "Stifle your noise," he said. "Forget your ignorant drunken bawdiness. It is a sin and great foolishness to injure a man by defamation, and to give women such a reputation. Tell us of other things, you'll find no lack." Promptly this drunken miller answered back, "Oswald, my brother, true as babes are suckled. The man who has no wife, he is no cuckold. I don't say for this reason that you are. There are plenty of faithful wives, both near and far. Always 1,000 good for every bad. And you know this yourself, unless you're mad. I see you are angry with my tale, but why? You have a wife, no less, by God do I. But I wouldn't, for the oxen in my plough, shoulder more than I need by thinking how I may myself, for aught I know, be one. I'll certainly believe that I am none. A husband mustn't be curious for his life about God's secrets or about his wife. If she gives him plenty and he's in the clover, no need to worry about what's left over. The miller, to make the best of it I can, refused to hold his tongue for any man, but told his tale like any low-born clown. I am sorry that I have to set it down. And all you people, for God's love, I pray, whose taste is higher, do not think I say a word with evil purpose. I must rehearse their stories one and all, for both better and worse, or play false with my matter, that is clear. Whoever, therefore, may not wish to hear, turn over the page and choose another tale. For small and great he'll find enough, no fail, of things from history touching courtliness, and virtue too, and also holiness. If you choose wrong, don't lay it on my head. You know the miller couldn't be called well-bred. So with the reeve, and with many more as well, and both of them had bawdy tales to tell. Reflect a little, and don't hold me to blame. There's no sense making earnest out of game. Shall we go on? I think we shall. That was really short. So begins The Miller's Tale, which is apparently rated X for bawdiness. BAWDY. There used to be a rich old oaf who made his home at Oxford, a carpenter by trade. Let me try this starting again. Blah. Sorry. There used to be a rich old oaf who made his home at Oxford, a carpenter by trade. He took in boarders, and with him used to live a student who knew what study. Holy crap, sorry. A student who knew what study has to give. But he was poor and let his fancies turn to astrology. That was his whole concern. And he had smattered up some propositions. And he had smattered up some propositions by means of which he could predict conditions. If people asked him at a given hour whether to look for sunshine or for shower, or want to know whatever might befall, events of all sorts, I can't count them all. He was known as Handy Nicholas, this student, well versed in love. He knew how to be prudent, going about unnoticed, sly, and sure. In looks no girl was ever more demure. Lodged at this carpenter's, he lived alone. He had a room there that he made his own, festooned with herbs, and he was sweet himself, as licorice or ginger, on a shelf. Above his bed's head, neatly stowed apart, he kept the trappings that went with his art. His astrolabe, his books, among the rest, thick ones and thin ones, lay his almagest, and the counters for his abacus as well. Over his cupboard a red curtain fell, and up above a pretty zither lay, on which at night so sweetly he would play, and with the music the whole room would ring. Angelus to the Virgin he would sing, and then the song that's known as the King's Note. Blessings were called down on his merry throat. So this sweet scholar passed his time, his end being to eat and live upon his friend. This carpenter had newly wed a wife, and loved her better than he loved his wife. This carpenter had newly wed a wife, and loved her better than he loved his life. He was jealous, for she was 18 in age. He tried to keep her close as in a cage, for she was wild and young, and old was he, and guessed that he might smack of cuckoldry. His ignorant wits had never chanced to strike on Cato's word that man should wed his like. Men ought to wed where their conditions point, for youth and age are often out of joint. But now, since he had fallen in the snare, he must, like other men, endure his care. Fair this young woman was, her body trim as any mink, so graceful and so slim. She wore a striped belt that was all of silk, a piecework apron, white as morning milk. About her loins and down her laps she wore. White was her smock, her collar both before, and on the back embroidered all about in coal-black silk, inside as well as out. And like her collar, her white laundered bonnet had ribbons of the same embroidery on it. Wide was her silken fillet, worn up high, and for a fact she had a willing eye. She plucked each brow into a little bow, and each one was as black as any sloe. She was by far a prettier sight to see than the new blossoms on a spring pear tree, and softer than the wool of an old wether. Down from her belt there hung a purse of leather, with silken tassels and with studs of brass. No man so wise, wherever people pass, who could imagine in this world at all a wench like her, the pretty little doll. Far brighter was the dazzle of her hue than a coin struck in the tower, fresh and new. As for her song, it twittered from her head, sharp as a swallow perching on a shed, and she could skip and sport as a young ram, or calf will gimble following his dam. Her mouth was sweet as honey ale or mead, or apples in the hay stored up for need. She was skittish as an untrained colt, slim as a mast and straighter than a bolt. Her simple collar bore a big brooch pin, wide as a shield's boss underneath her chin. High upon her legs she laced her shoes. She was a pig's knee, she was a primrose, for any lord to tumble in his bed, or a good yeoman honestly to wed. Now, sir, and again, sir, this is how it was. A day came round when handy Nicholas, her husband gone to Osony well away, began to fool with this young wife and play. These students always have a wily head. He caught her in between the legs and said, "Sweetheart, unless I have my will with you, I'll die for stifled love, by all that's true." And held her by the haunches hard. "I vow I'll die unless you love me here and now. Sure as my soul," he said, "is God's to save." She shied just as a colt does in the trave, and turned her head hard from him, this young wife, and said, "I will not kiss you on my life." "Why stop it now?" she said. "Stop, Nicholas, or I will cry out, 'Help, help,' and alas! Be good enough to take your hands away." Mercy, this Nicholas began to pray, and spoke so well, and poured it on so fast, she promised she would be his love at last, and swore by Thomas Becket, Saint of Kent, that she would serve him with when she could invent or spy out some good opportunity. "My husband is so full of jealousy. You must be watchful and take care," she said, "or well I know I'll be as good as dead. You must go secretly about this business." "Don't give a thought to that," said Nicholas. "A student has been wasting time at school if he can't make a carpenter a fool." And so they were agreed, these two, and swore to watch their chance, as I have said before. When Nicholas had spanked her haunches neatly, and done all I have spoken of, he sweetly gave her a kiss, and then he took his zither, and loudly played, and sang his music with her. It happened to the parish church one day. To do Christ's work, this good wife made her way. And as she went, her forehead cast a glow, as bright as noon, for she had washed it so. It glistened when she finished with her work. Serving this church there was a parish clerk, whose name was Absalom, a ruddy man, whose goose-gray eyes and curls like a great fan, that shone like gold on his neatly parted head. His tunic was light blue, and his nose red, and he had patterns that had been cut through, like the windows of St. Paul's, in either shoe. He wore above his tunic, fresh and gay, a surplice white as the blossom on a spray, a merry devil, as true as God can save. He knew how to let blood, trim hair, and shave, or write a deed of land in proper phrase, and he could dance in 20 different ways, in the Oxford fashion, and sometimes he would sing a loud falsetto to his fiddle string, or his guitar, no tavern anywhere, but he had furnished entertainment there. Yet if a man broke wind, he winced a bit, and spoke with delicacy, no word unfit. This Absalom, so jolly and so gay, went about with a censer each saint's day, censing the parish women, one and all, many the doting look that he let fall, and specially on this carpenter's young wife. To look at her, he thought, was a good life. She was so trim, so fit for lechery. If she had only been a mouse, and he a cat, I think he would have made short work of catching her. This jolly parish clerk had such a heart full of love hankerings. He would not take the women's offerings. No, no, he said, it would not be polite. The moon, when darkness fell, shone full and bright, and Absalom, always ready for love's sake, with his guitar to be up and awake, made toward the carpenters, brisk and amorous, and went along until he reached the house, a little after the cocks began to crow. Under a casement he sang sweet and low, Dear lady, by your will, be kind to me, and strummed on his guitar in harmony. This lovelorn singing woke the carpenter, who said to his wife, "What, Allison, don't you hear Absalom singing under our bedroom wall?" "Yes, God knows, John," she answered, "I hear it all." What would you like? In this way things went on, till jolly Absalom was woebegone, for wooing her, awake all night and day, he combed his curls and made himself look gay. He swore to be her slave and used all means to court her with his gifts and go-betweens. He sang and quavered like a nightingale. He sent her sweet-spiced wine and seasoned ale, cakes that were piping hot, mead sweet with honey, and since she was town-bred, he proffered money. But some are won by wealth, and some no less by blows, and others yet by gentleness. Sometimes, to keep his talents in her gaze, he acted Herod in the mystery plays, high on the stage, but what can help his case? For she so loves this handy Nicholas that Absalom is living in a bubble. He has nothing but a laugh for all of his trouble. She leaves his earnestness for scorn to cool, and makes this Absalom her proper fool. For this is a true proverb, and no lie. It always happens that the nigh and sly will make the absent suffer, so 'tis said, and Absalom may rage or lose his head. But just because he was further from her sight, this nearby Nicholas got in his light. Now hold your chin up, handy Nicholas, for Absalom may wail and sing alas. One Saturday, when the carpenter had gone to Osony, Nicholas and Allison agreed that he should use his wit and guile this simple, jealous husband to beguile. And if it happened that the night that the game went right, she would sleep in his arms the livelong night. For this was his desire, and hers as well. At once, with no more words, this Nicholas fell to working out his plan. He would not tarry, but quietly to his room began to carry both food and drink to last him out a day, or more than one, and told her what to say. If her husband asked about Nicholas, she'd say she had no notion where he was. She hadn't laid eyes on him all day long. He must be sick or something must be wrong. No matter how her maid had called and cried, he wouldn't answer, whatever might betide. This was the plan, and Nicholas kept away, shut in his room for that whole Saturday. He ate and slept and did as he thought best. Till Sunday, when the sun was going to rest, this carpenter began to wonder greatly where Nicholas was and what might ail him lately. Now, by St. Thomas, I begin to dread all isn't right with Nicholas, he said. He hasn't, God forbid, died suddenly. The world is ticklish these days, certainly. Today I saw a corpse to church go past, a man that I saw working Monday last. Go up, he told his choir boy, call and shout, knock with a stone, find what it's all about, and let me know. We're going to take a pause right here. I hope you're all tucked in and probably asleep by now, but if you ain't, I love you very much. Good night, sleep tight, and don't let the bed bugs bite. And if they do, bite them back. I love you.